going to now look at a typical 12-volt fridge. Now this fridge behind me here is a Furrion fridge. There's a variety of manufacturers that make the 12-volt. Furrion, of course, being a big supplier to the RV industry, is one of those natural choices. Now as I step back, what you'll notice is it has that very much residential type of look. That's what customers like. Now this will run 12 volts directly. Has a compressor on board similar to a residential fridge, but it's a 12 volt compressor. So that way you can draw power straight from your batteries. You don't need to have inverters on board, etc. So it's a little more efficient with the power that it's using and requires less power. Now, as we mentioned briefly earlier, you know, you're looking, if you're dry camping with a 12 volt fridge, you're realistically, with regular electrical usage in your camper, you're probably looking at 2 days. Now I know I'm going to hear a bunch of comments that people are getting 3 and 4 days. I'm trying to give you realistic when you're using lights and other fans and you're not charging your battery in between. If you went straight 2 days boondocking dry camping, you should be able to do that. You might even be able to stretch 3. But I want to give you, the consumer or the RVer, if you're new to this, a realistic expectation until you learn how to really manage very efficiently the systems on your camper. And that could be things, as I mentioned, like having a generator, or maybe you're carrying a portable solar panel that you're going to hook up to your battery and it's replenishing your batteries during the day. Then dry camping is going to be extended. But what's nice about the 12 volt fridge that makes it popular is that it looks residential, very easy to use because you're not switching buttons from gas or liquid propane to AC power, or setting it on automatic like we talked about with the absorption fridge, the propane electric fridge. This is set. You plug it in or you turn it on, you have your battery on, and it runs. Now this one is off right now. It's not running. The light comes on because we are hooked up to some power. What is also really nice is inside it's nice and clean. You don't have the fins, and it's a deep fridge because this Furrion is a 10 cubic foot fridge. Now, before I go further, I do want to say thank you to Bella Vista RV for lending us this trailer. We are in a brand new Shadow Cruiser, ultra lightweight by Cruiser RV, and Bella Vista RV is located in Oro-Medonte, Ontario. So I wanted to give them a thank you because they've given us permission to use their fridge and their unit for this video. So check them out, great dealer to deal with. But 10 cubic foot, glass shelves, looks like your regular fridge that you have at home. Up top, we have a nice deep freezer with an adjustable glass shelf as well, and just super easy to use. Plus, it cools down a lot quicker. So the absorption fridge, I said, you know, really allow 12 hours for it to cool down. This 12 volt fridge, you're talking somewhere between 2 to 6 hours to get it cooled down. Plus, if you put warmer food in there, meaning cans of pop, beer, something that you're cooling down, this fridge will cool it down faster than a propane electric fridge. And as you open and close the door, it's going to recover the cold that is coming out every time you open and close the door. It's going to recover it a lot quicker because of the compressor based versus the absorption fridge that has to go through that chemical reaction and cooling cycle that it does. So this has become very popular. The other reason it's becoming very popular is cost. A fridge like this at retail is going to run $800 to $1,000, ballpark probably about that $900 range, versus the absorption fridge for a same size fridge is going to run you about $2,000, slightly more than that. So that has made 12-volt fridges, very efficient. They are a little more efficient than a residential fridge, not quite as efficient as an absorption fridge for dry camping. But seeing that the majority of travel trailer buyers aren't taking their travel trailers cross-country, doing a lot of stop and go, that they find themselves in campgrounds with their families where they're hooked up to even just 15 or 20 amp power, that is more than enough, and you'll have no issues, and it's super easy and efficient to use. So the pros of the 12-volt fridge: easy to use, very reasonable if you ever had to replace, cools food down really quickly, recovers its cold really quickly as you're opening and closing it. The downside is you're going to sacrifice a bit when you're dry camping if you haven't prepared yourself with a solar panel, a generator to charge your batteries, or you've gone and put multiple batteries in. So that's going to be our cons here. Tips: there's really not a ton of tips because you don't need to buy a little fan to help cycle the air, because it is cooling more efficiently and it's cooling faster because of the compressor. You can use that little tip and hack of the fan like on the absorption fridge that I mentioned, but you really don't need it here on a 12-volt fridge. So the real only con behind it is you don't typically get these in big 12, 12 is probably about the biggest 12-volt right now. You're not getting in 14, 18, 20 cubic foot. 10's pretty much the standard out there. And then the dry camping sacrifice that you're not going to get as much longevity without those extra accessories or few upgrades. So I hope that's helped with the 12-volt fridge and given you a little better idea. We are going to look at a residential fridge next. Okay, so now we're going to look at a residential fridge. Again, thank you to Bella Vista RV. We're actually in a Hampton park model unit, and they have a beautiful Samsung residential. This is very much the residential that you're going to find in a number of fifth wheels as well as motorhomes. Now, a lot of times, if you're not sure if it's a residential, you can look for the plate inside or the sticker inside, and it'll tell you if it's 110 volt or if it's a 12 volt fridge. A lot of times, if you look for a special little lock that's a little bit different than what you would see, a 12 volt has a handle that you squeeze in order to unlock the door. Because these are made for houses, a lot of times a specialized lock that threads in or clips on and off is used, and that will help tell you that it's a residential if you're not sure. Also, the other way is you're going to see it's a fancier fridge. Here we have a French style fridge where we have our side-by-side doors that open up to a very, very spacious fridge. Now, this is a counter depth like you put in a lot of houses, so this is probably about 18-20 cubic feet, double what we saw in the 12-volt fridge and almost double to what we saw with a 4-door absorption fridge. Also, what's nice, a little harder to see in the video just because I'm trying not to move the camera around, the French style, so the big bottom freezer drawer that makes things really easy to get to with the separate sliding drawer. But what's nice about these fridges, beyond how nice they look, is they're super simple to operate. So one of our pros with this fridge is operation. When you're plugged in or you have your batteries on your unit and your inverter is on, then this fridge runs. And it's exactly like your household fridge. It has a compressor that runs to make things cold, to make the fridge cold, cools down very quickly. Here again, you're somewhere between 2 to 6 hours to cool a fridge of this size down to proper temperature. And as you're taking items in and out, it recools the fridge down quickly, If you put warmer items inside, like I mentioned, a regular can of pop that's come out of a case, a beer that's come out of a case, drinking boxes that you just bought at the grocery store, and you throw them in there, they'll cool a lot quicker because it's a compressor unit that is cooling the fridge. Another pro to this is on really hot weather where an absorption fridge may struggle a little bit, as I mentioned, because of the exterior temperature. This isn't going to have that issue. Whether it's 20 degrees outside, and I'm going to say 20 degrees Celsius, or it's 30 or 35 degrees Celsius with humidity, this compressor fridge is going to run really, really well and make things super cold. Now, the con behind this is that you're going to need an inverter to run this when you go down the road and you've left your house and you're going to the campground. You're going to need your inverter running and a battery. Now, realistically, you're going to need more than one battery. If you're doing trips out to your campground, again, one battery's enough, because when you're plugged into your truck hauling your trailer down the road, your truck's alternator is putting power to the trailer battery, which is feeding the fridge as you travel. If you're planning to do a lot of dry camping, you're in a fifth wheel, that's where it changes. You're going to need that generator to recharge your batteries, and I'm going to say batteries because likely you're not going to have one battery. You will need to have two batteries, two 12 volts. You may have two 6-volt batteries to get more draw, or even better, you've gone the lithium ion with a set of lithium ions and a generator backup to charge those. This is going to run through power much more dramatically than an absorption fridge and more dramatically than a 12-volt fridge. One, because it's 110 volts. Two, because of the size and space that you're cooling. Here, if you were running on, again, one 12-volt battery, you would be lucky to get an entire 24 hours. I don't even think you'll get 24 hours based on experience off of one battery. So two batteries buys you a little more time. Lithium ions buys you more time. Solar charger outside while you're dry camping will help, but really you're going to need that generator. Hence why we don't see these in travel trailers. We see them in the larger, more expensive fifth wheels that have generator prep, or we see them in motorhomes that have typically 4 6-volt batteries and then 6 or 8 6-volt batteries and lithium ions in a lot of cases, because of the power draw that's required and the automatic generator start in the motorhome to power up these big fridges. So pros, as I mentioned, really cold, nice big fridge. Cons, power hog in my opinion. You need the inverter. Likely you're going to really need a generator, and your dry camping time, if you're dry camping, is very, very short. Now, as I mentioned, it depends on the type of camping you do. If you're using it in a park model like this, or a destination model as most of the dealers call them, and it's never moving, this is perfect because it's going to go into a campground, it's going to be plugged in all the time, it's never going to move. You want the residential fridge. But when you're moving around a lot, this isn't necessarily your best choice. Really no tips or hacks other than if you do have one of these fridges and you are doing more moving around, solar panel, generator, as I mentioned. The other item is if you're trying to save some battery power, go into it less frequently, because these residential fridges have lots of insulation built into them. So once they've cooled, you've cooled this down at home, all your items inside are cold. When that door is closed, even if you reached in to get something on the road and closed it again, it's going to maintain that cold for a fair amount of time if you've got little glitches where you don't have as much battery power in between. So that's a little tip and hack there. Some trailers will have solar power up on the roof, and that will help trickle charge batteries to give power. That's a potential hack if they don't have solar, to add a solar panel if you really wanted a residential fridge. But I wanted to show you what a residential fridge looks like. Most of you know because it's in your house, but here it is in an RV. Big shelves, lots of storage, lots of drawers, big doors, and of course, this is what makes them super popular. They're absolutely exquisite, and you can get brand names like Samsung, LG, Electrolux, you know, Whirlpool, all in the RVs are being offered these days. So I hope that has helped a little bit with residential fridges. We're going to go back to our home base and we will finish up with some tips, hacks, and recommendations. Okay, so let's talk about what are the best fridges for you to use, and then we'll move into our recommendation. So a lot of manufacturers these days are moving to 12-volt fridges for their travel trailers and fifth wheels. And you'll see that and you'll think, you know, obviously they're doing it because the propane electric isn't as good, and it's not the reason why. I'll explain. They are doing it primarily because consumers like the look of the 12-volt fridge. One, they're typically 10 cubic feet, where most of the trailers offered 6 or 8 cubic foot, so now they can offer you a larger fridge. Two, they look like a residential fridge even though they're 12 volts, so they can save themselves some money by not putting an inverter on board and having a heavier residential fridge on board. They can save some dollars and some weight that way by using a 12-volt fridge. Are they necessarily better? No, that actually isn't the driving reason from what I've seen. Now, I am going to tell you my personal opinion. No one from any manufacturer has said it to me, but if you look at the general information around and the trend that has happened, a lot of manufacturers are going 12-volt fridges due to cost. So if you look at the cost, and I'm going to talk retail numbers in US dollars for our US cousins. We're shooting this in Canada, so you know, take your exchange rate as Canadian consumers. But in US dollars, a 6 to 8 cubic foot fridge, maybe even a 10, which is a 2-door gas electric fridge, is going to run you about $1,600 to $2,000. When you get into the 4-door fridges, because of their larger sizes, and you're going this 12, 14, 18, you're actually typically running somewhere between $4,000 to $6,000 for this fridge if you had to replace it. Now let's compare that to a 12-volt. A 12-volt fridge is going to run about $800 to $1,000, more in that 900-ish range US for a 12-volt fridge. Now I'm talking retail prices, so you know wholesale that the manufacturers buy at is cheaper, regardless of which combination. And residential fridges, you see them out there if you've looked for your house recently. You can buy them from anywhere from $700, $750 up to $1,600, $1,700. Gets you a really nice quality fridge. And again, they run, you know, 10 cubic feet up to 28 cubic feet. So big fridges. Even the big 28 cubic footers, $1,500, $1,600 buys you a really nice fridge for a motorhome. So the big driver has been, as you can see, if you're spending $2,000 as a manufacturer on a 2-door, 6 or 8 cubic foot fridge, you can now offer a fridge to a consumer that's 10 cubic feet, so almost double if you're comparing to the 6 cubic foot, and reduce your cost by $1,000 or more, but the price of the trailer hasn't changed, you can offer a couple of extra goodies in the trailer to entice a consumer to buy your brand, still save $1,000, which has now become profit. That's a massive win and a massive reason to put 12-volt fridges in. Now, I will say they also do it because a 12-volt fridge is very simple to operate. There's no switching back and forth, no propane. They have a compressor, they cool a little quicker, as I mentioned earlier in the video. But a big driver is actually price. And I mean, think about in a big fifth wheel or a motorhome where you put a 4-door fridge in and it's $5,000 to $6,000 US retail, and you could put a 28 cubic foot fridge, now double what I'm standing in front of in size, and spend $1,500, that's $3,500 saved. So from an economical standpoint, you can see why the trend has been to replace these gas electric. Easier for a consumer to use, simpler to understand than the gas electric, but at the end of the day, start building 100, 150 trailers a week that they all need fridges, and you've just pulled $1,000, $2,000 out of that trailer. That's a lot of money incentive to make the change. Just my thoughts. Now let's talk about what is the best fridge for you to have in your unit. So now that we've reviewed and talked to you about the gas electric fridge, the 12-volt fridge, and the residential fridge, let's talk about which fridge is actually best for you as an RVer. And that's more complicated than you think it is, but it's actually simpler as well. Really, the key is there isn't one fridge that is absolutely better than all of them. The real key is, how do you plan to use your RV? So if I was in a travel trailer and I'm going to be in a campground, and I should say travel trailer or fifth wheel, I'm going to be in a campground all the time, really a 12-volt fridge or a residential fridge will do the job for you, and you'll never have to worry because you're always going to be plugged in to 110 power. If you're doing a lot of on-the-road traveling, you're going to be stop and go, you're going to be doing a lot of dry camping, I would actually recommend the propane electric fridge, because it is going to use the least amount of energy, give you the longest amount of run time without having to recharge your batteries, and give you a really good size fridge for the actual unit itself. If I'm doing a lot of traveling in a motorhome, and that's where it changes a bit. If I'm in a motorhome with multiple batteries, 4 6-volts, 4 6 or 8 6-volts lithium ion batteries, then I'm going to go residential fridge, because it's going to give me the largest fridge, largest capacity that I can use, so I can really travel long distances. I don't worry about power because I have a lot of batteries. When I'm concerned that the battery levels are getting low, I'm using an onboard generator, because motorhomes come with onboard generators these days. And many of them have systems that if they realize, if they're set so that they know the battery levels have dropped to a specific level, they'll even start the generator to recharge your batteries. So if I'm traveling in a motorhome with those type of features, I am going to want a residential fridge. Now, if I'm in a motorhome, a more entry-level motorhome that is using trailer-type batteries, where I have 1 or 2 12-volt house batteries, and I'm much more limited in power, I'm actually going to lean on the propane electric again. Because even if it has automatic generator start, remember what I said, on one 12-volt battery, you'll probably be lucky to get a day on a residential fridge. So in a motorhome, I'm going to be using more electricity for other gadgets for part of that lifestyle. And even if I have 2 batteries, I'm going to be pulling a lot of power out of them, which means my generator's kicking on a fairly regular basis to make sure my fridge is running. That's something I wouldn't necessarily want. So, big battery bank, residential fridge in a motorhome, small battery bank, propane electric fridge is the way I would go. To recap, general use, lots of traveling, lots of dry camping, propane electric. You're in a campground the majority of the time, always plugged into power, 12-volt fridge is a fantastic option for you. And then we've just talked about the motorhomes. And if you'll notice as you shop around, manufacturers are putting a lot of 12-volt fridges into trailers these days, travel trailers, because the majority of consumers go to campgrounds.